A great phone, but no longer a game changer. A design that puts its rivals to shame. An elegant smartphone for a more civilized age. That's what reviews are saying about the all-new HTC One M8, and we're here to talk about it on episode 089 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week audio podcast where we discuss smartphones, tablets, and wearables. From Boston, Massachusetts, I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocketnow. Later, I'll be joined by chief news editor Stephen Shank for the news, and eventually, Taylor Martin, senior editor Taylor Martin of North Carolina, will join us whenever he shows up. But until then, we have two good friends of the show from regions and publications distant but close. Nick Gray of HTC Source and Android and Me, and Daniel Bader of MobileSyrup. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, sir.
Daniel, very glad to have you on the show for the first time. Nick, wonderful to have you back again. Daniel, you're calling in from Toronto, is that right?
The far northern regions of Toronto.
Now, so this is, and Nick, you're calling in from Minneapolis, right? You're back home?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
So, Daniel, you can settle something for me because I have a friend who I used to podcast with about Star Trek, and when I came back from the BlackBerry launch in Toronto last year, he said he cringed. He listened to the episode and he said he cringed every time I pronounced the second T in Toronto. So, but you just pronounced it Toronto as well. So, is there a dialect thing that I don't know about? What's happening?
No, we do not say Toronto. We say Toronto. But I, of being of sound mind and not of Canadian origin, I was actually born in South Africa. Oh. I do not say Toronto because I think it's an ugly word. I love the word Toronto, and I will say it until the day I die.
Well, that's good enough for me. I have the backing of an actual Toronto resident, and I will keep saying it my way too.
Do it.
Thank you. I didn't know you were from South Africa. That's great. Daniel and I met for the first time at, I believe, the Galaxy Note 2 launch event. Very briefly, it was the same time I met Taylor Martin, actually. So that was a fun day full of meetings. And we most recently ran into each other at the HTC One M8 launch event, where Nick was also sitting right next to me. We were selfie buddies, Nick.
Yes, we were.
So
yes, we were.
A lot of reviews have already gone up. We still have a lot of reviews set to go, and I would like actually to know if you guys have it scheduled yet, if it's wide open information. Daniel at MobileSyrup, Nick at HTC Source, and Android and Me, and I believe you were covering that launch event for PhoneDog as well, correct?
For video, yeah.
Okay.
I left the writing to them because I figured I couldn't write 17 posts in the span of 2 hours.
Yeah, that's a good call. Particularly once the curtains rolled back and we had all those wonderful cocktail trays full of hors d'oeuvres going out, right?
I actually didn't catch any of those.
Yeah, actually, neither did I. I was way, way, way too busy. But there was a lot going on. I just wanted to ask you, in terms of your schedules and stuff, Daniel, when do you think your review will go live, if it hasn't already?
So I have to preface this by saying we get things a little bit differently in Canada. We didn't get a pre-device period or pre-embargo period. I got my device the day I came home, which was yesterday.
Okay.
So I've only had it for 24 hours. But we also are getting a bevy of devices that you guys have already received. I actually watched your excellent review of the LG G Flex just the other day to prep for my own review because the G Flex is launching next week on Rogers as an exclusive. So I'm doing that review as we speak, not as we speak, but proverbially as we speak.
Right.
And I will be doing the HTC One review shortly thereafter. I'm actually looking forward to delving into a device deeply again. We have this period, between December and CES where there's nothing and you don't really get any devices to review. And once the weather starts improving, you get into the swing of things again and you finally go, oh, right, I remember how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we have the same like Gulf region as well. I remember reviewing like the Lumia 1520 or something like that, and then all of a sudden, until CES, there was just nothing to do. It was such a giant dry spell. And granted, maybe that's only like 3 weeks, but still, it felt like a long time. It looks like we have a third face on our call suddenly. Taylor Martin, is that you, friend?
Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Who's this Taylor
Good.
guy? I don't know this Taylor guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know him anymore either. I don't know
Apparently
anything
he's a
anymore.
jerk.
He is a jerk. But we're talking, Taylor. We're talking first impressions of the HTC One. Of course, we've all had the device for varying lengths of time. We've gotten
Except for me.
Except for you, Taylor. That's why you're the outside eye on this. And actually, that's why you're quite important, because I think, Daniel and Nick, I don't mean to speak for you, but I know that when I got the device for the first 2 days, I was in a kind of impenetrable honeymoon phase. Is that still the case with the both of you?
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm absolutely in love with this phone. There are elements of it that I wish were different, and I say that about every HTC phone. I've said it since the Desire HD or whatever it was called in your strange country. The One X was also a great device, which had a few issues. The HTC One, the M7, was probably as perfect as I think a device is going to get. I think you sort of said it correctly, where it no longer blows us away, but it is a very good evolution of what the M7 was. But then there's that camera, and we're probably going to talk a lot about that later. But
No question.
That's
Yeah.
my main issue with it.
So let's stay on the industrial design for a second, because the differences between the M7 and M8 are the ones that are fascinating to me, because the last year's HTC One was one of the most attractive phones I think I had ever seen. And I think that holds true today, because I still think the original one looks better. Those polycarbonate side rails really look nice. The opportunity for the double chamfer along the sides. The whole thing had a unity that I really don't think has been surpassed by anything else, including this evolution, because, we have the bezel thing that everyone's been complaining about that I don't care about, but apparently people care about the HTC logo down below taking up space without buttons next to it. And we have this ridiculous octopus eyeball on the back above the camera. So, there's sacrifices have been made in the aesthetics. It's in the feel that I think the M8 really eclipses the One, because when I hold them side by side, the new device feels substantially more comfortable than the comparatively sharp and kind of painful M7. What do you think about that, Nick?
I think you're spot on with that. I mean, looking at the devices, side by side, you can definitely tell where one is inspired by the other and how they're trying to build off of that amazing design that they got right with the M7. Mm-hmm. And the new device just feels, as you said, so much smoother, so much nicer when it sits in the palm of your hand. It just feels buttery almost. I think some people complain that it feels a little bit too smooth. But, as long as your hand's a little bit sweaty, it gets a good grip on it. If your hand's dry, then lick your fingers or something. I don't know. But as far as the design, the edges of the M7 just had that little bit of appeal, that ruggedness about it, and the hard angles looked nicer than the smoothness of the M8.
Yeah, I think the wide radius corners on the M8 are something we all talked about as visually maybe something that either you liked or you didn't like, but man, put it in your hand, and the way that feels against the palm is just... I kept trying to find a better analogy than a finely honed like kitchen sink faucet handle, but I really couldn't, because that's kind of what this is like to me. Like it's just like you had a home appliance that you got the most expensive contractor in town to come in and put in your house, and that's kind of what this phone reminds me of. It's just stunning, at least in the gunmetal. Do you guys both have the gunmetal one?
Yes,
I do.
Yes.
Yeah. See, I love the gunmetal one, but I wish that some others were out there. I think Sam Pullen has an Arctic silver one, or glacial silver, whatever.
Glacial silver. Yeah, I saw that for the first time today, actually. My friend got one. I don't know, HTC Canada gave most reviewers the darker one, the granite one, or graphite one, but the glacial Arctic whatever silver version actually looks nicer, and I would prefer it because in the hand it doesn't feel quite as glossy as the darker version, and it reminds me far more of the M7 in a good way. Because I agree with you. I actually like the industrial design of the M7 better. I feel like its angles gave it a certain je ne sais quoi, something that you could compare to a Galaxy S5 or 4 at the time and say, this is a beautiful phone, this is utility. And to some extent, I think that HTC, with the rounded corners, with the comparatively wide bezels around the screen, I think they lost a little bit of that magic in going more utilitarian in this design.
You know, that's a solid point. Now I want to hear from somebody who hasn't actually held it yet. Taylor, what do you think about all this? Do you agree with the general thrust of the M8 kind of falling a little behind the bold move of the M7 visually?
Visually, yes, but I will say that there were some things about the M7 that I didn't like, and that's one thing that you particularly like about the M7, and that's the polycarbonate sides. Because I had the white one after Brandon used it for a couple of days or a couple of weeks.
Which is always brutal to get a phone after Brandon, yeah.
He gave it, quote, life experience, and it was sent to me. I physically had to wash the sides. Brandon's not a dirty guy, but it's just that white polycarbonate, the matte finish and how it's so grainy tends to pick up dirt and it tends to stay there. And I always hated that. It never looked nice to me.
Just to jump in on this,
yeah, go ahead.
Brandon actually tweeted Jeff from HTC and said that his gunmetal gray M8 that he has his hands on right now is already dirty, and he doesn't like the finish, and he's had the phone for 48 hours. So saying that Brandon doesn't get the devices extremely dirty, he's already gotten his new device extremely dirty. And again, his quote was life experiences or just living life. I don't know what he's doing, like crawling around in the dirt or something like that. Sorry, Brandon. I just don't know what you do on a daily basis to know what you do to get your devices that dirty.
Brandon is like in charge of. He's devoted his Twitter feed to like critiquing HTC's launch of this device. Everything we're going to talk about on this show, Brandon has already covered on Twitter, and he's done it extensively. But yeah, I see what you mean. Nice from afar, but far from nice. Gets dirty easily. I might have gone silver. See, guys, I don't mind the silver look of the thing. Go ahead.
The silver probably would have gotten dirty faster.
Exactly, it would have. And also the silver doesn't cover up the number one sort of aesthetic fail, in my opinion, of this device, which is the we got to come up with a name for that. We should have come up with a name for it during some of the leaks, but what are you guys calling it? Do you have a special name for the depth sensor above the camera, the little octo eye?
That thing that shouldn't be there?
Yeah, that thing that shouldn't be. Yeah, but wait, isn't there like a superhero with a
Cyclops?
Cyclops.
Oh, no.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, the Cyclops eyeball. So the gunmetal one it lessens the contrast between the body and
it hides it a little bit more.
It does, yeah, which I appreciate. And I know we have to get to the camera eventually, but I'm sort of dancing around it so we can talk about the good stuff first. But anyway, so I've just spent taken a little trip downtown with the M8. I was trying to take some photos while the sunlight was up. I put it in the dot view case for a little bit of that. And what do you guys? Did you guys each get a case at the launch event or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you used it?
Didn't.
You almost didn't? Why?
So I got my phone with all my cases. I think they gave me 3 or 4 cases. They gave me the HTC Fetch as well. And I was talking to Jeff right there where you saw me, where you said goodbye. I was talking to Jeff probably for like 20, 30 minutes, and then I left. And I had the phone in my pocket, but I forgot the HTC bag. So I left the box. I left all the cases, the HTC Fetch.
No.
And then I actually just went across the street to the hotel that was right across the street there so I could do some work because the Wi-Fi at the location was simply horrible. I had to upload some videos. And like 45 minutes later, I'm like, crap, I have no bag, no box, anything. So I went back and they were completely tearing everything down. They're like,
Oh,
I think we saw a bag. And so they kind of like threw me a box and, oh, you needed some cases? Here's some cases. No, do you have the dot view? Maybe we'll get you the dot view. So, I mean, they hooked me up, but I almost didn't get it. But yeah, I've been using the dot view, and I think as stunning as the phone is, everybody who sees the dot view case, like, they don't even know that I have a new phone. They're like, oh my gosh, that case is awesome.
Yeah.
When they see the dots come through.
And I think that's why the dot view case is important. Like, normally I wouldn't just segue right to an accessory and when there's so much else to talk about, but the dot view case is significant because it's immediately eye-catching. You see somebody...
Can we stop calling it dot view? Can we call it light bright, please? Please.
It reminds me of like the Animator 2000 and that whole golden era of just pixelated stuff. But yeah, it's a wonderful little accessory. I kind of wish we could get our hands on the different colors right now, but I imagine that only amplifies its feel. And it's got some shortcomings, but this is going to help sell the device. It's so much more distinctive immediately than just a naked One M8, because the One M8 kind of looks like the M7 from a distance. But yeah,
I guess it was you and Eric Zeman who were talking back and forth about the case.
Yeah,
and how it's really, really kind of springy when you're flipping it open or like using it.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Like, closed, it's awesome. And even then, the awesome is qualified by the fact that some of the HTC, only the HTC specific apps can display notifications, which is kind of annoying. But then you open it to use it, and guys, are you seeing the same thing as me, where it's like it just bounces all over the place unless you really squeeze it really hard?
Oh my God, I could talk. I could do an entire podcast on this one case. I have so many thoughts on this freaking case. Am I allowed to swear on this?
We can bleep it out, but yeah, go ahead.
This bloody case. Okay.
I love that that's swearing and kind of that's awesome. All right.
I was gonna say something else, but then I corrected myself.
Yeah, we got the clean tag on iTunes to think about. No,
I love in theory, I love this idea. It is the counterplay here between design and UX is so stark. This is something that a designer thought, my goodness, this is going to be a great idea. And then they gave it to the industrial people, the manufacturers, whomever put together the case, and that hinge that somebody didn't think the case, the back of the phone is rounded and the flip case is straight. That's not going to play badly when it's being folded back. I mean, did nobody open this damn thing to think about what would happen when you try to use it in one hand?
And you know what? I bet I can tell you what happened. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, I exactly that same point. I mean, honestly, like, if they would have pushed back the hinge on the side by a millimeter, it would have made the biggest difference in the world. But who knows? Maybe they wanted it so that you could prop it up and watch videos or something, or maybe there should have been like a two-step clicking on it. I don't know. They could have done something better.
Well, like if they wanted to do that, I feel like they could have. These are the people that built the first widely accepted kickstand and some of the best, I think, at least here in the States, with the Evo 4G. And then the Windows Phone 7 devices after that. Like, I mean, HTC knows how to do kickstands. If they wanted to do a kickstand, they should have done that properly. I think what they were trying to avoid was the same crap that plagues some of the bookcases we see on other devices, where it has the opposite problem. Yes, it folds back very nicely on, say, the Galaxy S4, but when you try and close it, it doesn't close all the way because it kind of springs up all the time. And nothing is uglier than that. A phone sitting on a desk with a poorly made case that won't stay closed, I think that's heinous. So I think they were probably trying to avoid that, especially considering the fact that the dot view case relies on being pretty much perfectly aligned with the screen to function properly. But they went too far in that direction, because you try and type a text message on the thing one-handed and you'll be accomplishing something if you don't drop the phone, because it's that cumbersome and awkward, which sucks for $50, right?
Right. And again, that's another thing. $50 for this case. Even if it was $29.99, I think the $49.99 price is going to be a huge barrier for a lot of people, because this isn't an OtterBox. This isn't something that's purporting to protect your phone in any great way. It's the utility is on the front, and I don't believe that justifies the $50 price.
Yeah,
Well,
and
what's
go ahead.
the price difference between this and some of Samsung's flip cases?
So the Galaxy,
'Cause, I mean,
I was just thinking about that. I think that thing launched, the Flip View, the S View cover or whatever, launched at $79.99. I think that was one of the things we criticized it for. But it almost immediately came down in price. So
Yeah, and granted, it has a back cover on this, and it's thinner, but I mean, this is actually protecting the back of the device, so it actually has a case on the back of the device, and then something on the front. I don't know. Like, I still think the $49.99 price for this is a little bit high. Maybe $35 would probably be perfect.
I think that I think it's well designed in other respects too. Like there's holes for boom sound. The case, the software that supports the case is intelligent in that you can start streaming some audio, like right in the browser, even not even in an app. You can just start streaming audio through SoundCloud or whatever in a plug-in player, and close the flap. The screen goes off, but it continues to play. And not only that, but you can adjust the volume as it plays while closed. It's smart in a lot of ways. It's certainly not perfect. And the S View cover right now at Samsung is $49.99, so they're evenly priced. By the way,
Same price.
yeah. Yeah, it would be cool if you could take photos with it while it was open, I suppose. But it's certainly not a perfect product. It's just I think though that they did get the ooh and ah, like the immediate appeal, correct, because people were falling over themselves at the event to do hands-on videos with this thing. We waited a couple days until I got back here, and I was like, okay, whatever. But the first impressions, the hands-ons were basically universally loaded with praise, and I think some of that's deserved just from a design standpoint. It's actually when you start using it that it gets a little cumbersome, Anyway, I don't know. Maybe it would have been nice if they had built in Qi wireless charging into it.
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking that. This would be such a good Nexus 5 replacement if that had it.
Yeah. So, that aside, while we're talking about the Nexus 5, we're talking about stock Android. Taylor Martin said in an article about last year on the first HTC One, blink feed is the first thing that he would take off his device if he ended up buying an HTC M7. Do you remember that, Taylor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Do you feel the same way now that we have Sense 6 with the new blink feed and the new enhancements to Sense?
Well, I haven't used it, so
yeah.
Taking that into consideration, I would opt for the Google Play Edition. I've never liked Sense ever.
Not even the new Sense. Not even since Sense 5.
I didn't like Sense 5 at all. No, I've always had issues with Sense, like sending text messages.
What?
If you there was a bug for like 2 years where if you had a plus in the beginning of the phone number in your contacts list, it would fail to send a text message to that contact.
What?
There was something like that. There was a one, like, yeah, it was like if you had the country code in the contact, it would fail to send the message or something. It was for a, it happened. What?
Take the plus out.
Well, yeah, but
Need it.
well, the problem is that I use Google Contacts, and I have like 3 duplicates of everyone. It was a mess. It's just been little things like that, and the copy and paste was really, really messed up for a long time.
It's not. It hasn't been messed up since Sense 5, though. I don't think.
I didn't use Sense 5 all that much.
Oh, so if you're basing your judgment on pre 5, then yeah, I agree with you.
Well,
Sense is horrible.
All I was saying is I haven't really ever liked Sense because I was dealing with bugs all the time. But Sense 5 was an improvement, but I still didn't like it. It's just I don't like the visual appearance of it. I don't like the settings app. I don't like the icons they use. It's just not for me. I'm a purist. So
if you haven't seen the newest version of Sense, it's completely flat. There is essentially no UX elements to it. You know how their app headers used to be like gradient black from dark black to darker black or lighter black. Lots of beveled icons. All of that's gone. Everything's completely flat. If you go into settings, the settings icons are all just a gray icon. A lot of the things are actually flatter than stock Android, which is really surprising. If you take this and compare it to a Google Play device, there's things in here that are flatter than stock Android.
That's true. Yeah, there's been a lot of flattening, but it is still very, very distinctly Sense, though. I mean, you have HTC's custom font in here with its various bold and standard elements. You've got the vertically scrolling launcher and then the accent colors everywhere. So I actually kind of preferred Sense 5 in this regard, in that because it was so monochromatic, it was hip, it was chic. It was like, this is very minimalist. It's black and gray, and the wallpaper provides the color, and the rest of it is kind of monotone. And I kind of liked that, or monochrome. Whereas now it's with these accent colors, it's like, hey, haven't you always wanted eggplant purple and international orange in your color scheme? No.
But in terms of Blink Feed specifically, it wasn't something that I ever really enjoyed. And I didn't enjoy the app drawer where it had weather and everything at the top. So I really just have to use it to see if I like it. But chances are I would probably still opt for the stock version.
So you're actually making a good point in terms of the Google Play Edition, because I wanted to bring that up and ask our guests what they think about it. I carried the HTC One M7 in the Google Play Edition for quite some time, and I got to tell you, I never fell in love with the thing the way I did with the first one, because I feel like Sense is such a critical component of the HTC One experience. Do you guys have a thought on that? Like, Nick, I feel like I know what your answer would be on this, but do you agree?
I do, yeah.
Nick, go ahead.
No, you go for it. He probably knows my answer. So,
well, I think I would assume my answer is similar to yours. I believe that the HTC One was the first device that was modeled on, and even though this was pre-iOS 7, I believe that it was the marriage of hardware and software in the One M7 and Sense 5 was the best integration between the two in Android's history so far. I think, and I believe that has been furthered with the 6. Although I don't love I guess the way that KitKat works is that developers now can add color to the notification bar like they can in iOS 7. I don't think it works as well on Android because it's inconsistent. Whereas if you have something on iOS, a developer can take over that top area with the clock, and it looks more uniform. I think HTC's done a good job in using that API, but I don't know. There's something about it that I don't love, mostly because most Android apps don't take advantage of it, so there's no consistency. But I do think that Sense and HTC as a design firm have become so intertwined that if I saw the Google Play Edition, I would just feel like it's a fake Nexus.
Yeah, that was
you kind of get that from any Google Play Edition device. I feel because like the M7 and the Galaxy S4, both the first two Google Play Edition devices, they were built around the Sense experience and the TouchWiz experience, not a stock Android experience. So you didn't get right out of the gate all the features. So you couldn't use the IR blaster. You couldn't use or utilize optical image stabilization. You couldn't utilize the full extent of that phone because it was married so tightly to that software. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a little different now, I believe, because
because HTC released Google's working with the HTC APIs to enable the Duo camera, so that'll work. And yeah, it's a little tighter right from the start this time. But I don't know, like from a utility standpoint, Taylor, that's true. But I've never seen a marriage of hardware and software on a Samsung Galaxy S device in a visual sense. I've never looked at TouchWiz and been like, man, gosh, I just, like this only belongs on this plastic faux metal hardware, the way I have been with Sense on the One. And another good example is the 8X and the 8XT from HTC for Windows Phone. Like, yeah, maybe it was a bit of a bogus kind of buzzwordy thing, but they were like, yeah, we looked at a live tile and we were like, what if a live tile existed in the physical world? And that's what guided their HTC 8X design. Like, those things I understand, but I don't know. I wouldn't have minded a Google Play Edition of Galaxy S4 is what I'm saying, as much as I minded the Google Play Edition 1.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, and I can't put it into words, though I do believe that some of the idiosyncrasies with the Sense version of the One made sense in the context. Sorry, made sense in the context of sense, but it didn't make sense for the Galaxy S4. So the Galaxy S4 was more of a blank slate. The design is so utilitarian that it adapts more easily to various software UIs. But for some reason in my brain, the One M7 is inextricably linked with Sense. And I don't know if that's going to be the case with the M8 because of the fact that they have the virtual navigation keys now as opposed to hardware keys.
Right.
But I agree with you there.
What about that? Can we talk about that for a little bit of Nick? Go ahead and make your point. We have a little bit of latency, so I've been talking over you, and I don't mean to. But go ahead and say what you were going to say.
Yeah, yes, you do. You always want to talk over me. That's the way you do it.
Especially
for me, the one thing that I didn't like about the Google Play Edition M7 was not the Sense UI, but the camera experience. With what HTC put out with the camera experience last year with Sense 5, it was head and shoulders over anything that Google put out with their stock camera app. And whenever I picked up the Google Play Edition, I was snapping pictures, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it takes a quarter second for this thing to snap a picture. And then you go in and you look at the picture, and it's not as good. And I've got the two devices side by side. I'm like, this is a horrible experience. And the reason why I used the Google Play Edition for a couple weeks and went back to the Sense was because of the camera. I could care less about the other, Sense features. I actually do like Blink Feed quite a bit, but I could live without it. But the one thing for me was the camera. And, if they can get that right and get the camera experience right, it's not necessarily about the UI, but how it actually operates and, producing good pictures and having the good experience of when you push the button, it's actually taking the picture right then and there.
Yeah, I agree with you that to a degree, but I would say that it is about the UI as well. That stock Google shooter for the Nexus device and the Google Play ones is so horrible. I can't figure out how to use it. Every single time I go back to using those phones, I'm like, now where's the HDR again? Now it's in this settings. No, this settings. Okay, because they seem to have arbitrarily divided the two into all these horrible sections. But before we talk about the camera, that would have been a very neat segue. But we do have to cover this because, geez, I don't care about it, but it seems like the entire internet is up in arms about these. I'm looking at it. Maybe 3 centimeters of wasted space below the display.
It's so stupid.
I can't. I mean,
it's so stupid.
I don't understand. You have a device that has boom sound speakers top and bottom. Okay, so it's already going to be taller than any other 5-inch device out there. And then you have added this section of hardware that has the HTC logo on it. And because you're not using capacitive keys anymore, it seems to only serve the purpose of the HTC logo to a lot of people. But I do not think it's worth the outrage. I want to call it like Bezelgate, because it seems that you can't talk about the M8 without hearing somebody complain about that wasted space. Mm-hmm. Am I the only one who does not give a damn about it, or what?
I couldn't care less at all, period.
Yeah, I couldn't care less, but I had the privilege of talking with Martin Fischer. I think it's Fichter. Mm-hmm. He's the VP of Product and Operations for HTC North America.
Nice.
And he said that that there was no opportunity to remove that bezel because a lot of the boom sound, in order to create a larger cavity for the actual speaker to generate better bass, mm-hmm. all the electronics for the boom sound speakers, both of them, are in that area, are in that HTC logo space.
Oh, so the amplifiers and the all that other physical equipment that supports them?
My guess is that it's not the amplifiers, it's the connectors, the physical connectors that join both speakers to the motherboard, to the amplifier itself. Because I'm guessing the motherboard, if they use the same pyramid design that they did with the M7 for construction, the motherboard is actually right underneath the display, and then the battery is basically taking up the entire back.
Right.
Or sorry, no,
inverted pyramid thing, right?
My bad. The battery is right below the display, and then the motherboard is right under the chassis on the back. But
okay.
Regardless, there are electronics there that he assured me they're not at the point yet where they can remove that space.
Yeah, I didn't think. I mean, you have to imagine that every square millimeter of space inside this body is being used for something. So I think the argument that I've seen from people who are full of fury about this quote unquote wasted space is, why didn't you just stick with capacitive buttons then and not have the on-screen? And I mean, to me, I guess that's the most valid portion of this argument I can see. And did anybody get an answer on that or no?
Yes, Android 4.4, immersive mode. He said that the only reason they changed to capacitive, he said they did prototypes with both, and the only reason they went with on-screen buttons was because KitKat added immersive mode.
Ah, fascinating. Mm-hmm. Well, there you go. There's your answer. I don't think that it impairs the usefulness all that much. If they were able to condense it a little bit, if the device could be a little bit shorter, I think it would be okay, because you guys can agree or disagree, but I do think it's a little bit awkward in one-handed use. I have dropped it. I think I dropped it in the unboxing, actually. I dropped it right on the desk. Yeah. And it's not a phone you want to drop. Go ahead, Nick.
For those, yesterday iFixit posted their teardown of the M8.
Nice.
Yeah, so they showed all the internals of it, and if you actually look at the boom sound speakers inside the M8 versus the ones from the M7, the boom sound speakers are massive compared to the ones from last year, and the battery itself is essentially the size of the display inside the phone. It's freaking huge.
Yeah, I'm having a look at that.
So if you haven't seen it, go to ifixit.com or else every other blog. Maybe not Pocketnow, apparently. You didn't know about it. Posted the story.
Well, I'm not sure. Steven's probably on it, but he's been busy with the Microsoft stuff.
Yeah, so I mean...
They gave it a 2 out of 10?
They gave it a 2 out of 10
for repairability.
Yeah.
That's better than last year's 1 out of 10. So it's better. But yeah, I mean, HTC is cramming every last millimeter of space inside that phone with something. There's no wasted space. If we really wanted to see, they could probably get rid of that space below the display if they chop down battery, and that means you would be probably back at a 2300 milliamp battery, the same as last year's model.
Or maybe they could have retained the battery size, done a little redesigning, and omitted something else.
Like maybe a depth sensor. I don't know.
Maybe a depth sensor could have gone, right? Let's finally talk about this, guys, because I've been out taking pictures all day. I'm comparing the Duo camera's performance against the Nokia Refocus app, which is the cheater's way of doing depth of field. And I can find almost no reason why I would choose the HTC solution over Nokia's or Samsung's, for that matter, because their S5 has similar technology. Right. This Duo camera, I think, it's certainly the most widely reviled piece of the M8, and I want to know what you think of it. Daniel, why don't you tell us what your initial impressions are?
So I'm of the impression that the larger pixel size, larger sensor, 4-megapixel idea as an idea makes sense. Okay, but in this day, we're not only. And I'm not just talking about nerds like us. I'm talking about regular people. They don't just share 600 by 600 photos to Instagram anymore. The fact that Google Plus allows you to upload full-size photos and share them so easily to everybody you know.
Right.
That's such a phenomenal feature. I think it's not okay in 2013. Even in 2013 it wasn't okay. But in 2014, I think it's even worse that they didn't even update the sensor. I refuse to believe that they didn't have the option of, I would have spent an extra $50 on the phone if they had increased the price to justify a better sensor. But they didn't do that.
I would have bought one if they had updated the sensor. I would have bought one yesterday or on Monday.
I feel it's important to point out it's not exactly the same sensor. Yes, it's 4 megapixels. Yes, the specs are exactly the same, but it's not exactly the same component. Not that really matters, but I mean,
yeah, it's even worse because it doesn't have OIS.
Yeah. And the reason they took out OIS was because it's not compatible with this new stereoscopic approach with the Duo camera, the rangefinder up top.
Now, which you're finding isn't
isn't
even
worth it in the slightest. So the halo feature of this approach is that you can do fake depth of field. I was sitting at the event, and so was Nick. We were both sitting next to a professional photographer at the event in the form of Adam Lane, who has been going back and forth with me on email since then, and we've been trying to get to the bottom of this. But he looked at some of the some of the photos that HTC took. So these are the photos that they took, put up on a giant screen in front of a massive crowd of people, and said, "Look at the amazing stuff you can do." And even on those photos, and I'm stunned they didn't touch these up, you can see like the dividing line where the software decided what was in focus and what was out. When you look at these fake bokeh shots, it's like your brain kind of tells you something's wrong with them. And you're like, wow, did somebody just take that into Photoshop and kind of blur the background or what? Like, why is there a strange halo around things? And why is there a very crisp dividing line between the foreground and the background? And I've spent all day confirming this. It just takes terrible photos when you use that functionality.
If you look in your review of it, if you look at the GIF you made, you can see even where the blur doesn't even match up with certain elements. If I'm looking at it right now, if you look at the table on the left side of that image, the table kind of jumps up where it goes out of focus.
Yeah, I was in a German beer hall, listeners. I was finishing the review in a German beer hall and in New York City, and it was wonderful. And I took two shots. I took a single shot, and then I did the bokeh thing. And you can see that very crisp dividing line between the foreground and the background. It's like, but that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Nick, what's your experience been with this camera?
As far as the ultra pixels go, I'm personally a fan of the ultra pixels. For me, it's not about the clarity of the images. It's about the camera performing optimally as far as I want to take a picture right now and I want to capture this information and not have a blurry picture. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that gets lost a lot with some of the people who review this phone. Like they do the comparison of the low light, but they forget to take into consideration taking a picture of something that's moving. You know, you get a lot of still life images, and like I took these images side by side, and this is the comparison. Do that same thing, but try using your camera and follow around a little toddler that's running around the room and snap that picture. The HTC One from last year outclassed the Samsung Galaxy S4 for that, mainly because it had the optical image stabilization, which is gone now. But I've taken a couple pictures of my kids running around, and I'm still getting the same instantaneous capture where you're losing or you're not getting that blur in the picture. And for me, that's one of the main points is I don't care about the low light as much. Yes, it's nice, but that instant capture where the frame rate is simply a lot higher than what you get on other devices because of the ultra pixels, because they are allowing in so much more light. But as far as the refocus stuff and things like that, I'm actually playing with it right now. I posted one picture to Instagram a couple minutes ago, something that I took over my lunch break today. There was a chandelier in a new condo building here downtown. I was looking straight up, took the picture, did the refocus. It looks nice. If you're sharing them to Instagram, they're going to be able to create some nice effects that your friends aren't going to be able to create.
Sure, yeah, because they can take that info, that focus info, and like render everything that's not in focus into a sketch, for example. I think that's a pretty cool one. There's a cartoon one as well, but you know, I don't know. I think those effects are cool, Nick. But then you have the same problem with the dividing line because the effect then, it only applies in a. That's an insistent ringer.
I'm so sorry. That's the one.
Oh, nice. But yeah, the effect is not uniform. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just posted the two pictures. So one of them I did, which was the U focus, which you can focus in and change the depth of field essentially, and it looks really nice. Like there's like 6 or 7 globes. If you go to my Instagram account, there's a shameless plug, Nick M. Gray. I just simply called it lights, and there's 4 or 5 lights that are in focus, and then there's higher ones up that are out of focus, and the ceiling's even more blurry.
Oh, that's very cool.
And it looks really nice. Yeah. And then I just did another one with the zoom blur effect, with the same exact picture, and it looks like these lights are falling from the sky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can get some good effects, but it's an effect. It's not, oh my gosh, I made this picture awesome. It's one of those things like, I got something cool to look at. That's really nice, and that's about it.
And before we get too far away from it, I want to mention you do make a good point about the autofocus, because this depth sensor does allow for a sub 300 millisecond focus attainment. And what that means is if you're shooting in dark mode in particular, I did, like in the M7 versus M8 comparison, I think I took a picture of the Excelsior model in my pitch dark bathroom, and the M7 with the flash on, and the M7 had no hope of getting focus in the amount of time that the flash gave it. So it was completely blurry and crap. Whereas the M8 had no trouble in securing a very clear photo that looked very nice. And so, yeah, there's that. There's some white balance correction and stuff, but if you can fake the effects with multiple exposures like Nokia and Samsung do, I don't think we're getting enough benefit from the fact that we have this big old eyeball in the phone's casing.
The effect that you get with the other cameras, they are taking multiple pictures. So when you're taking a picture of still life, it typically works. But if you're taking pictures of people, the effect is horrible, because you'll get people and you get the blur. And I've done this with some of those other cameras where you get the layered effect of the multiple images and you can refocus, but there's some blurring in people's faces as they're kind of changing expression, so you lose a lot of that. The fact that this is taking one image, you get the ability of having that quickness of just having one image. It's kind of like when you take HDR images with some cameras. The effect, the colors are really nice, but if you look at the edges of the items inside your image, you can see the blur. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you kind of get that with the cameras that take multiple exposures and apply the filter with the multiple exposures.
The thing that burns me the most, I think, about this is that I love taking extreme close-up shots so that something in the foreground can be in focus and then you have background elements out of focus, and you can't do that with this because there's a parallax effect between the depth sensor and the primary sensor that it makes it impossible to use the expanded bokeh effect when you're up close. And the camera will tell you, when you're up close to it.
Mm-hmm. It gives you if you take a picture of something that's too close and you click the U focus button, it says you can't do it with the image. Object is too close.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy because you're like, really, that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly right. So you're like, okay, so I can use this in a very specific set of circumstances that I'm not often in. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's hugely frustrating because I really think this was a. But at the same time, you were saying before. I don't know who was saying it. I was saying it in the review too. That ultimately, if you just throw that stuff out the window, you use the camera as the mythical average person would use a camera. It captures fine shots. It captures nice low light shots. It does everything the One did last year, and it does some of it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And while it is 4 megapixels in 2014, which is embarrassing, it's still going to give you some nice images. And,
yes.
And you can see that all over the internet. There's sample photos. Don't take my word for it. Mm-hmm. So
here's my thing.
Yeah,
ask the internet.
HTC has made, and I wrote an editorial about this. The comment section is the wild, wild west. Toss a grenade and run.
Oh, is that the one with like 400 comments?
Yeah, it is a mess. But the point I made is HTC went out of its way and made an otherwise perfect smartphone. You said it yourself. If they had gotten this camera just right, you would have given it a 10 out of 10, right?
Yeah. I mean, it would have been very, very close to 10, yeah.
Right. It's just that good. They have done so much with this, and they've gone to such great lengths. And I really don't have a problem with a phone with a bad camera. I carry a Moto X. I made that point in the editorial. Right. I don't think I got my point across appropriately. The point I'm making is HTC has put marketing behind the camera specifically, saying that we've done this amazing thing and this camera does this awesome feature. We have this awesome camera feature and you can do this with your camera. But it doesn't work as advertised. Mm-hmm. And comparatively, the camera is just not as good as some of the competition. So they've gone to great lengths to make this work. It doesn't pay off in the output. You get the hard focus line. It has trouble sometimes guessing what's in focus, what should be in focus, what should be out of focus. And it's restricted to 4 megapixels. So for someone like me, I like mobile photography. I like to take pictures with my phone to see what I can do. And a lot of the times I like to use those as my wallpapers on my computer, on my phone. I can't do that with 4 megapixels. Period. End of story. I have a Retina MacBook Pro. If I want to use one of those pictures with this phone as a wallpaper on my Retina MacBook Pro, it's going to stretch the picture even more. Mm-hmm. That's a very, very finite complaint. But it's just we're in an age where 4K and even 8K televisions exist. We don't, 4 megapixels, not acceptable.
On a mid-range device, where you're trying to keep the cost down, totally acceptable. On a flagship phone that everyone else is saying that could be the best smartphone of the year, it's kind of inexcusable. And it was a little frustrating to try and pin down HTC on this. I got the opportunity to speak with Scott Croyle, the designer of HTC Design, and the response was basically like, well, there's some concerns from a design standpoint. Do we, is there going to be a bump on the back if we do a different sensor? But I couldn't get him to actually say whether there was a supply constraint or whether there was something else going on. But you've got to imagine, and Nick and Dan, please tell me, you've got to imagine that they're confined to this choice, right? That they didn't just make the choice out of defiance or stubbornness or anything. They've got to have like a bin of 400,000 4 megapixel sensors that they need to get rid of. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, as you said, it's not the same sensor, but it's from the same component supplier. And I'd imagine that it's because they just don't have the buying power of Apple and Samsung to purchase the same quality sensors in bulk at the lowest cost. So they're left with the second tier sensors from these companies that are not Sony, right? Mm. So it's not a bad sensor, and as I said earlier, the technology, the idea is sound, and you can take some amazing photos. I've taken really great photos with this, but I have to disagree with you, Taylor, on one thing, and with you, Michael, because when you consider the fact that the Lumia and the Samsung devices have this refocus feature, that is an explicit opt-in feature. This extra data is included in every single photo you take with this phone. There's no opt-in here. So and consequently there's no opt-out either. You have to take a photo with both sensors even if you don't want to. But what that means is that later on down the road, even if you forget to take a photo with that explicitly turned on refocus feature, you can go in and try to manipulate it in ways that you wouldn't have been able to by using the auto mode of a Galaxy S5. That's something that is very valuable, especially once developers start integrating this open SDK in their own apps. So that's another thing down the road. The hardware is there. HTC can then iterate on that and improve on the API and the SDK and make it really easy for developers to create really cool Android apps and create an entirely new ecosystem of software that could take advantage of this extra data. That's actually quite valuable.
That's when you look at the long game, you're absolutely right. That is very true. And we've been told flat out that third-party developers are, if not already working on this, then have they released the SDK already? I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't believe so.
Okay, but they're going to shortly, right?
Yeah, I think their line was, we will be delivering this to developers in the near future.
Right.
And one thing to point out, I mean, yes, right now the software is a little bit buggy. Yes, there are kind of halo effects around, items that you put in or out of focus or hard lines as well. That's all in the software. I mean, the depth information is there, and then the software on top of that is applying these effects on top of the depth information. Mm-hmm. So as they get into this, as they release Sense 6.5, 6.6, whatever it is, they will be fine-tuning that. I mean, we saw improvements to the ultra-pixel camera last year.
We did, and we saw some, and we also saw the Moto X get a substantial improvement thanks to software as well. So yeah, absolutely, these improvements can come, and I think Nick has fallen way behind us in the timescape.
I just want to add that this is one of those fanboy comments that you're going to get on an article about this, but I have seen third-party applications that do this defocusing pretty well, almost as well as this. Now, granted, you can't change focus later on. So if you wanted to focus on something in the background, you can't.
That's the thing. You need to make the affirmative choice ahead of time. And Daniel, that's a very great point. It's in my notes for the comparison today. It's like, you have to say, okay, this is a shot I'm going to want to refocus later. I have to go into the refocus hub and do this with this lens, whereas with the one, you just shoot. Yeah, no, totally. But go ahead, Taylor. You have a tail end to your point there. Right,
but for me, I've never... The only time I've ever wanted to change focus is if I miss focus. So if I take a shot and I realize later on it's not actually in focus. Usually if that happens, I just take another picture. I realize shortly thereafter and take another picture. I've never once in my life thought, hey, it'd be cooler if I focused on this thing in the background. Typically, if I'm going to focus on something, I know what I'm going to focus on when I take the picture. I don't know if that's true for everyone.
Well, no. It's true, but you've also not had the option for very long either.
Right. No, it's a new thing.
Yeah.
Since Lytro came out and since HTC has done this, but it's just something that is that something that people are going to want to do a lot? Is focus on something that's not in the foreground that they haven't already focused on?
That's a very good question, and it comes down to how well HTC is going to be able to message this. And I don't mean to hijack your point, but we do have to end our feature because Stephen Schenk is about ready to come on for news. But that's my question to you guys. Do you think HTC is going to be able to sell, in particular, this camera, but broadly this phone, well enough to make it a hit? Or are we going to see another 2013 with the best phone they ever built is selling in numbers better than they've ever sold, but still not enough to really put them in a healthy place financially? Nick, are you still on the same time continuum with us? Can you speak to that?
I hope I can. Well, for Lytro, they decided to make a whole business out of it simply for the refocus factor, and I don't think that turned out very well for them. It was kind of a gimmicky type device that you could only refocus with certain things. And yes, it's new, it's innovative in the way that nobody's done it before. I don't think it's going to be a main selling point for the device, and I don't think HTC is going to pitch it as we're the only device that does this. There's other selling points here. The software is really nice. The hardware is exquisite. And the camera takes decent pictures in low light. And from a marketing perspective, they're still pushing the ultra pixels. I think going to be more pushed than the dual camera feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And how do you think the end game is going to play out with that? I mean, do you think it's going to be, Nick, a success this time around, a bigger success, the kind of success they need to stay competitive in terms of numbers?
I think it will be a lot better than it was last year. I think HTC noted that the HTC One was their best-selling device of all time.
Yes.
And that's simply because they typically divide up their flagship phones into 4 to 5 different SKUs for different service providers. Mm-hmm. So if you do that in comparison, probably devices from previous years might have sold more, if you could accumulate all the devices. But I think this is actually going to sell a lot better than last year's model, mainly not because of the device itself, but their go-to-market strategy. The fact that it launched on the unveiling day, it's already in stores, it's to market before the Samsung Galaxy S5, it's on Verizon already.
Huge accomplishment, by the way. Yeah.
Exactly. Those are huge steps forward, and that's a business strategy that I think is going to be paid off, and they're going to reap the benefits of that a lot more than the hardware itself.
I have an auxiliary kind of hypothetical question.
Man, that sounds like the perfect time for that. Not. Go ahead.
Yes. Yay. I love you, Michael. And by love, I mean hate.
Yeah, same thing.
The question I have for Nick is, do you think that HTC would have fared better if they didn't buy into this whole dual camera thing and go full-fledged, just face-first into it, and would have rather just used an 8-megapixel sensor with optical image stabilization and maybe even the same size sensor or bumped up the size sensor and used some sort of different combination that at least in an output resolution would compare on the sales floor? Because marketing, I think it's really difficult for people to wrap their heads around ultra pixels. Basic consumers, they hear ultra pixels and they just don't really know what it means.
Yeah. Then you get the occasional guy in the comments who gets so bent out of shape when you call an ultra pixel a megapixel.
Right.
I'm like, come on, friend.
So like, an ultra pixel is a megapixel. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. They're one and the same. You're just looking at marketing terms here.
Thank you.
Honestly, I don't think their fate would be any different if they had a 20 megapixel camera on the back or a 2 ultra pixel camera on the back. Consumers, Apple does not advertise how many megapixels their phone has. They have a 1-minute commercial about the iPhone and about specifically the camera on the iPhone, and not once do they mention how many megapixels are on there.
Yeah.
And Sony has a 20.1 megapixel camera, and that doesn't seem to have helped them any. It's one of those things. Yes, people know the numbers. I think the consumers are becoming educated enough to know that the megapixel count doesn't tell the full story. Yes, there are people still out there that want the biggest number possible, and you're never going to be able to change their mind. But I don't think it's going to help sell or hurt HTC in any way.
It's a solid point, and we're kind of putting a button on the camera topic. We do have to note the front-facing camera is of a higher resolution than the aft camera. In one case, that's pretty hilarious. In another, it's really great because HTC has finally supplemented the 88-degree wide-angle lens, which has always been excellent, with a sensor that's capable of capturing some really nice detail. Now, this might not be the best news for people who are concerned about facial blemishes or people like me who can't seem to trim their beard quite well enough. But everyone else should really enjoy this new front-facing camera, which I think is a huge improvement, but not quite good enough to where you want to turn the phone around and shoot with that instead of the ultra-pixel camera.
Agreed.
Yeah. Daniel, I want to ask for your final thoughts. We have to move into the... Stephen, you've joined us on the air, yes?
I have.
The difference, Stephen, between aft and stern, as you asked in the chat, is that there is none. Aft and astern are the same.
Well, considering I think that all boat directions are, synonymous, this does not help me any.
On the starboard side bezel, I noticed a little problem. Now, Daniel, I want to ask for your final thoughts as we transition out of the M8. We could talk about this phone probably all day. We just don't have the time because our podcasts already run too long. So, tie up your thoughts for us, if you would.
I chose the HTC One as my third favorite phone of 2013 for a number of reasons. And as Taylor and I have agreed on in the past, the Moto X I found was a better all-round phone. Mm-hmm. I believe the One M8 is a better all-around phone than any smartphone on the market, and I think that includes the iPhone at this point, if only because they've improved every aspect of the software that I found to be a little bit underdeveloped, and I will carry this until probably the next Nexus comes out as my main Android device. And the reason I think that actually it's going to continue drawing attention is not because of the duo camera, which I don't feel it's less than a marketing gimmick than just a mistake. I just believe that they've fixed. They finally matured, and they finally come up with an idea that they are not just a hardware company; they're a design company. And with that, hopefully, the platform, for example, Zoe is going to be coming out in the summer. They'll be releasing updates to their core framework apps through the App Store now, so people are going to get excited again. Yeah, I think it's going to be a very successful phone.
Wait, did they say Zoe? We wouldn't see the standalone Zoe app until the summer?
Yeah, if you open the app on your phone today, it says coming this summer.
It says coming this summer? They were going to have it ready in time for launch. What happened?
They're making Zoe a service, so people will be able to share and add images to your Zoes and things like that. So
you'll be able to crowdsource a video. Yeah. So, we're not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but the app, you can download the app on the HTC One M8. But then once you're in the app and you click use or whatever it is, it sends you back to the Play Store. Yeah. So you're in actually a continual loop right now. Well, that'll be great. The enhancements they made to Zoe, the existing Zoe features are quite compelling. I've already made a handful of Zoe highlight videos, and that's I've said it on this show before, but that's one of those things that has really stuck, even in my life, with people who are not tech savvy and could not care less about ultra pixels, pure view, or any of these other buzzwords. My girlfriend in particular, I still will like just whip out at like the 1020 at a party or something like that. She's like, "Oh, are you going to take a Zoe?" I'm like, "No, this isn't that." How do you remember? Wow. Because when people see highlights videos, I really think that they're such an underappreciated feature. Or an under-pushed feature. They're very well appreciated by people who've seen what highlights videos can do, and I'm just going to keep making them as long as I have this phone. So,
well, honestly, though, I stopped using highlights once Auto Awesome videos came out.
Yeah, but you hang out on Google Plus, though, right? Like you spend time there and such.
Well, no, like I upload my pictures. I have Google Plus that uploads my pictures automatically, and I get a notification that it said it made an Auto Awesome video for me.
Right.
And the editing capabilities of the Auto Awesome stuff is so much better than the video highlights. Like I was loving video highlights, and then the second half of last year, Auto Awesome came out, and it simply blows it away. Like HTC started it off really good, but Google kind of left them in the dust.
Interesting. Taylor, Steven, you're the Google Plus guys on the team. Do you agree?
What?
Well, Steven, you don't hang out on Twitter. You got to hang out somewhere. I imagine it's Google Plus.
I have to hang out nowhere, Michael.
That's a good point, Steven. Taylor? What's your feeling on Auto Awesome versus HTC Zoe highlights? God, that's a mouthful.
I really don't have an opinion on either because I don't really use either. I used Zoe once or twice when I was using the phone when my sister had her gender reveal party for her baby. That was really cool.
What? Those things exist?
Yeah, I didn't know either, but apparently they do. So I used that, and it was really cool. Everybody huddled around, and it was a big conversation piece for her party.
Yeah.
But Auto Awesome, it sent me a couple things, but I really don't.
Got to throw more parties. Got to throw more.
I don't take those memory pictures like, yay, we had fun. It's more of, this is a really good coffee. And
man, that's you've succeeded in the best disappointment of the whole podcast. Taylor, what next?
If you go to my Google Plus page and scroll down through my feed, you'll find Auto Awesome videos.
Just plugging all over the place, aren't you? Go ahead.
Christmas vacation. And like the thing with the highlight videos, you're limited to time and the way that they're organized. It's gotten a little bit better, but the Auto Awesome videos, there's so much customization. I think Android Central, they actually have a YouTube video of how to create and edit an Auto Awesome video on your device, and it's 2 minutes. Watch it. It's extremely easy to do, and you can essentially do anything you want. I mean, I actually used Auto Awesome during CES to edit together a couple different pieces. Like, I wasn't using any of the Auto Awesome features. I was just trimming video and stuff like that. I was just using it as a video editor, and it, exported a 1080p video file for me in less than 2 minutes.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, that's compelling. Damn. Well, I got to get on that page there. That's thank you. Jeez.
Well, and the one thing to note with Auto Awesome, it's only compatible with a select number of devices. Auto Awesome videos.
Is the HTC One M8 one of them?
I have not tested yet. I know last year's HTC One worked, the Samsung Galaxy S4, the Moto X, the Nexus devices, and I think 2 to 3 other devices. I think they're gradually rolling it out to more phones. But that's
that
why
would be the
a lot
question
of people
to answer.
are talking about,
because
a lot
if
of
it's
people
not
aren't talking about
compatible,
it because it's not compatible.
Right. I want to. We got to move into news, gents. But Daniel, we got your thoughts on that. That's. I am not surprised to hear that you're probably going to use it as a primary device for a while. Certainly, I might do the same. I'm thinking of going back to my Moto X, and usually it's a comfortable move for me to go back to the device I actually own, and because I like the Moto X so much. But this is going to be a tough one to give up. I got to tell you.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Nick, your final thoughts before we head on out of here?
I think I pretty much said it all. I think they're going to do a good job with the new device. It'll just be interesting to see if the sales actually pick up.
It will, and we're going to follow this as well once we have some more to report. We're still all really spending a lot of time digging into the various corners of this device, listeners, so you can expect a bit more. We had a big blast earlier in the week, but more is starting to trickle out as things go on. I have a blink feed guide on the site right now. Once again, MobileSyrup, and Nick, are you going to have a review on HTC Source as well?
Yeah, we're going to be working on a review for HTC Source and Android and Me. We're actually going to piece it out a little bit differently. We're going to actually do some in-depth looks at some of the different features and then piece everything together for the final review.
Nice. And why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on the internet so that they do not miss that when it goes up? I mean, not that you haven't already plugged your Instagram page, your Google Plus page, your home address.
To plug me 1,000 more times. Twitter, at Nick M. Gray, or Twitter at HTC Source, or at Android and Me.
Sweet. And Daniel, where can people find you on the World Wide Web?
worldwideweb.mobilesyrup.com. It's like maple syrup, but with a mobile twist.
You know what? You know what's hilarious? I just got that now. I had never gotten that, and I just got it.
Are you serious?
I can be stupid about something.
Got that like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. I know who my real friends are now.
Yeah.
Michael's just a little bit slow.
Just a tad. Well, just for that, I will say to you, Daniel.
And I'm never invited back.
I was just going to say, I will say to you, Daniel, it's been lovely having you on the show, and would you please replace Nick Gray for every subsequent guest appearance?
My pleasure. Although I'll surreptitiously invite Nick halfway through the show, and he'll just show up.
You know what? I think I could live with that. Both of you gentlemen are wonderful, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on the show, and thanks for your perspective on the One. It was intelligent, entertaining, and just a little bit arousing. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Amen.
Well, while the features team and the reviews team at Pocketnow was covering the M8 exhaustively and the editorial folks were backing them up, we had some tireless work on the part of the news team, headed up by Stephen Shank, chief news editor, and he is going to essentially fill me in, and by extension the rest of you listeners as well, who also have not been paying attention to anything but the HTC One M8, on all of the extra HTC info, and by that I don't mean additional, I mean outside, the outside of HTC news cycle. We had a Microsoft event today, Google said some stuff some other time, I'm sure Apple did something. Stephen, tell us what's been going on.
Well, I led off the rundown here with the announcement of the M8, but in retrospect, it seems like you already covered that pretty well.
We might have already covered that.
I think we could move on, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, and you guys, I heard you talking there about the Zoe release. Have you mentioned it coming to other Androids beyond the HTC?
We did not. We did not mention that. The BlinkFeed and Zoe would eventually find their way to non-HTC devices. Isn't that right?
This is what's happening. It's kind of it flew in under the radar here. This was part of the original press release that came along with the new One announcement. But as, HTC is describing all the features, talking about BlinkFeed, it was literally a little, asterisk next to it. And you go down to the very, very bottom of the release and, oh, yeah, BlinkFeed's coming out for non-HTC Androids. And then it turns out Zoe is going to join it as well. And I guess that makes sense with what you were saying about Zoe becoming more like a service now than a standalone app. It's a lot easier to deploy then to all these other devices. So those are coming.
That is awesome. I had heard something similar in one of our briefings, but it didn't make it to the final review. I don't know why, but I took a note on something similar. I think that's going to be cool. I really don't think adoption is going to be that high. I don't think that there's this like massive demand for BlinkFeed, but I think it's more of one of those things where it's like, oh, this comes with this phone I just bought. Should I turn it off or is it cool? Oh, it's actually cool. I'll keep using it. But I don't think it's that thing where it's like, oh man, I just upgraded from a HTC One to a whatever, an Xperia whatever. Oh, I really wish I had BlinkFeed.
Well, I think there are a lot of users who have maybe heard about it, but have no idea what it is. They've seen a few still pictures. They don't know, what it would really offer them over what maybe some of the stuff that came with their own phone. If they had like a Samsung with TouchWiz, this is new and unfamiliar. At least they can try it out then. And I don't think they're going to start using it every single day, but download, give it a spin, and maybe next time HTC launches a phone, they think, well, hey, that software was decent. Maybe I give this guy a second look now. So
that could be. I mean, I think
But
there's a higher chance of Zoe being a hit outside of HTC phones. Zoe's really compelling. But go ahead, Taylor.
Is there a market for it outside of something like Flipboard? I mean, Flipboard is basically the public version of BlinkFeed, which existed before BlinkFeed.
yeah.
It is, but for some reason I fell out of love with Flipboard. I liked it for a very long time, and then suddenly I was like, you know what? I'm not down with this anymore. And I don't know what it was.
I don't use it. I don't like it. But with something like Facebook Paper or Feedly, I don't need BlinkFeed ever in my life. That's the thing. Like, I don't.
Yeah, but
if
those
I want to look
services
at Facebook,
don't do what the new BlinkFeed does. Like, yes, it pulls in Facebook, Twitter, and the news, but it also integrates local content. Like, it puts your calendar in there, and it puts your some Zoes in there at random. And if you want a tip about your phone, that'll scroll by on occasion. Like, it does a lot more than just that. You can plug in your Fitbit to it and stuff.
I think that's good for maybe general consumers, but for someone like me, I have intent when I want something. Like, if I want to look at Twitter, I want to look at Twitter. If I want to look at Facebook, I want to look at Facebook. And I don't want this kind of cluttered, jumbled mess of everything.
I can
You don't like
understand
chocolate
that.
in your peanut butter.
Yeah.
No, I totally do.
See, no, that's crazy because I don't like chocolate in my peanut butter. And
You're weird.
No, you're weird.
Christ.
You also said that you don't like fusion food. You are weird.
That's not true. I just said I didn't like sushi burritos because that's the grossest thing I've ever heard of.
But I'm now making some for dinner. Oh my god!
I'm going to send you a picture of one because it's
I've
it's
seen
amazing.
enough. I follow you on Instagram. I see this crap all the time. That's why I
The
bomb all the time.
The chef sends me pictures as he makes these things.
I have ground beef and seaweed wrap. What else do I need? Beans? I can do this.
I take it back, by the way. I just downloaded Flipboard and I'm using it and I like it a lot. So I don't know. I don't know what my problem is. Anyway,
What is life?
Let's move on. Let's move on.
A lot of Samsung stuff happening.
Yeah. So what has been happening? I truly know zero about this.
Zilch?
Inform me.
Let's start with the GS5, as it's the big guy everyone's still expecting. So we're all waiting for this guy to come out next month. April 11 is the official worldwide release date, except in South Korea, where the carriers kind of just altogether decided to jump the gun by a solid 2 weeks, and you can now buy the GS5 in South Korea. Samsung seems a little confused about this, but it's happening.
Was it the carriers that went rogue on that?
Yeah, so apparently the carriers were up to some not exactly legal business regarding subsidies. I don't know what the details are. Maybe they were discounting phones too much, kind of like antitrust or price fixing. I don't know. South Korean government yelled at all the carriers and give them a slap on the wrist, said you can't sign up any new customers. I think it's starting April 5th through, I guess, the end of April. So this decision was made after the April 11 launch date was given for the GS5. Huh. So they're all like, well, crap, how are we going to sell this thing? So rather than, get pushed back a month or be forced just to sell the phone to existing users, they decided to start selling them early.
Wow. All right.
So they have until April 5 to sell as many as they can.
And so, and I'm sorry, when is the stateside launch again?
It's April 11 everywhere else.
April 11 everywhere else.
Yep.
All right.
Ships on April 8th if you pre-ordered.
Cool.
Just a random factoid or fact that I discovered earlier while writing.
I believe that we are obtaining our review unit from Clove this time around, so I think ours may go out with the pre-orders, folks. So listeners, just so you know when to possibly expect our coverage. Don't expect us to get early on this one. We're not that cool.
But no,
this year.
Even if you're waiting for April 11, you still might have some problems getting your hands on the phone because, once again, we're hearing about rumors about production and availability problems. Last time this popped up, they were saying it was an issue with the fabrication of the lens elements. They're going to go into the camera on the GS5.
Really?
Yeah, they were making it thinner and jamming in an extra lens, so making all of the individual components had to be that much thinner. And apparently that was just pushing things too far, and they had problems molding because they're plastic lenses, not glass, and the plastic wasn't hitting the molds right. Supposedly they have that worked out by now. But now there's a new issue where optically coating the lenses isn't going well, so there may be stock problems. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a big deal. Like I said, they fixed that molding problem pretty quick, but you may have a little more problematic time than you were expecting.
Just goes to show that you don't need to be trying to push boundaries in terms of industrial design to have production problems.
Little things.
Yeah, because like the S5 is not the HTC One, certainly in terms of hardware, yet here we are with production problems. It can happen to anybody. So
and all it takes is one little component to screw things up. I mean, it's the camera now, but fingerprint scanners in years past.
You can't ship a S5 without a camera. So yeah,
pop it in later.
It's the Samsung phone blocks, the Samsung Galaxy phone blocks.
There you go.
I understand that the S5 Active might still happen, and the S5 Zoom is happening.
These spin-offs, we're going to get them apparently just like last year. I assumed we weren't going to see the Active because the GS5 itself has some decent water resistance. I mean, I don't think Samsung's claiming it's full-on waterproof, like throw it in under the pool and start taking pictures underwater. But maybe that's why we're going to have the Active as well. But there's a rumored model number for it. We haven't really heard anything about how it might differ SoC-wise or anything, nor have we seen any pictures, but it's at least a contender now, where in the past couple of weeks it seemed like it might not happen at all.
Well, the only thing that's going to make that phone compelling is if they do some form of mil-spec ruggedization in addition to the immersion resistance or the ingress protection. Because, as you say, we already have a waterproof Galaxy S5.
So unless there's like a hardware shutter button so you can take pictures underwater,
and you don't need that because the S4 Active used the volume key for that and it worked fine.
Oh yeah, that would work.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, so there has to be some reason they're doing this. Yeah, unless they've decided that they like the direction the S4 Active went, which was a slightly downgraded S4. Marketed directly at people who, because it's probably the case that not everyone who lives an active lifestyle knows that the S5 is going to be as rugged, so they're going to be looking for an S5 Active. So Samsung figures, well, we have the scale, let's just kick out the same thing.
I was recently shopping for mouthwash, and I'm looking at all the different bottles, and they have, I look at the active ingredients, and there's like Listerine Normal, and there's like Listerine Ultra Deep Clean, and they have the exact same active ingredients in the exact same concentration, because one says Ultra Deep Clean, people are going to look for that one, so maybe that's the active.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I'm sure it's probably a takeoff on that. I hope to be wrong, but I wouldn't put it past Samsung to try and just save a little bit of money, just throw a Snapdragon 600 in the S5 Active, or drop the camera resolution again, or something like that. Yeah,
we've got all these old cameras from the GS4. Why not we use some of those?
Yeah, because that's what they did with
they still good.
The sensors from the S3 they threw in the Galaxy S4 Active.
Boom, boom.
There you go. All right, so moving on.
Beyond the Active, though, we're also hearing about an S5 Zoom. And the good news there is if you thought the GS4 Zoom was kind of bulky and useless, the GS5 Zoom should be quite a bit thinner. And more importantly than that, the description we've heard says that the lens is going to hide itself away really well. So it might not look so much like a camera as a GS4 did, while hopefully still offering the same, was it 10x optical zoom?
Oh, it was crazy optical zoom. That thing is a nutso phone.
A Titan design sounds like a very wise move.
Oh, man, yeah. I just wonder if they're going to sacrifice that awesome ring that we loved so much, the control element surrounding the lens.
I'm worried because they're talking about it. It sounds like it might be flush, so that could be a problem.
No, I was being sarcastic. That ring was horrible to use.
No?
Yeah.
No. Except I didn't really like those sort of things.
Oh, me too. But they seldom work out the way they promise.
Maybe that's fixed as well. And also bigger screen, much higher res. I think it's 720p versus, was it QHD last time?
Something foul last time. Yeah.
So
that's
awful.
not much.
Yeah. But that camera, I got to give that camera props. As ugly and cumbersome and weird as that phone was, that camera was pretty sweet. I didn't believe Tony when he said it, and then I got the AT&T one, and I was like, oh, yeah.
All right. Also in Android land, we've been hearing about Xperia Z2. Retail availability has been coming up. And some rumors earlier were talking about, like Samsung and its problems with the camera with the GS5, Sony was also hitting manufacturing issues with the Xperia Z2. And as a result, there was talk about delays, availability problems. Now we finally have some official word. So what happened was Sony or some retailers started sending emails to customers who were either interested in the phone or had pre-ordered it, telling them that it would be pushed back. This is a UK retailer previously expecting the phone in April, have now started saying early May. So people are freaking out. Sony offered a statement saying it's going to be available in April. in the UK specifically, we're talking about here. And people who pre-ordered it through quote-unquote key retailers will definitely get their pre-orders in April as expected. Now, I don't know what counts as a key retailer, but I guess a larger store, one that you would assume has a relationship with Sony and didn't just, find a crate of these, you should be good to go. But beyond that, they say availability is going to be limited, and they aren't necessarily going to meet the initial demand. Now, for Sony, that's saying something, because we don't usually expect that there's a lot of people aren't waiting for these like Samsung or iPhones, but
that was going to be my question, man. I'm like, what is the demand for the? I feel like the only time I see the Xperia Z2 referenced in comments is when people are expressing disappointment at either the HTC One or the Galaxy S5, where like the Z2 serves as this kind of like on deck selections. Like, well, guess I'm going for the Sony one.
It's funny you say that, because I've been writing all day about the One M8, the Galaxy S5, and the Z2, which one I'm looking at, and comparing them feature-wise, spec-wise, price-wise, everything.
And do you have an opinion?
I guess I should just give the spoiler. If I were to choose one of those three right this minute, it would be the Z2.
Wow! Wow!
Yeah.
Really?
That's something coming from me.
Yeah, that's weird.
If it weren't for the ultra pixel camera, If it weren't for that camera, I would get the M8 hands down, no question, right this minute. But no, that's not the case.
You covered that a lot on the feature too. I get it. I understand what you're saying. All right. Sony design doesn't speak enough to me to do it, but that's the personal preference thing, just the hardware. But I'm a hardware guy,
I am too. I'm a design guy. I love every last aspect of the M8, but the camera is too important. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Plug.
Oh, dear God, that's right. I'm on another podcast tonight. Anyway, yes, we'll talk about that in the outro. Stephen, tell us more about ZTE. And by that, I mean, start telling us about ZTE.
Yeah, well, ZTE made the questionable decision to launch its latest Android the very same day the M8 arrived. So this one kind of got a little bit lost in all of the excitement over HTC's announcement. But we have this new ZTE Nubia X6 phablet, and it's a big guy, and it is packed with some serious hardware. It's got a Snapdragon 801. 6.44-inch display. That we heard that it might end up being 2K. It's not. It's just 1080p, but I think that we can live with that. 3 gigs of RAM, 13 megapixel cameras. So there's a 13 megapixel, front and back, and the back one's got optical stabilization.
That's crazy. Why?
That is.
The price is what's so impressive, though.
What is the price?
Jeez. So that's 64 or 32, 64, and 128 gigabyte options. $485 for the 32 gig model.
Wow.
I mean that's in China, but if it ever comes to the West and it's even the same range of a price, that's pretty great.
Oh, is that why we didn't get the? Because I thought we would have gotten a heads up on this early, but it's only launching in China right now?
As far as I've heard so far, yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. That's it.
Well,
it would be cool to see this come stateside. I think that would be impressive.
$645 is the pricing for the 128 gigabyte model in China.
Who's shopping for 128 gig Android smartphones? Like,
all I'm saying is,
you can't see me raising my hand over the podcast.
I would buy a 128 gigabyte model.
Who are you people who don't use cloud services? Like, I got Spotify, I got Netflix. What do I need local storage for?
Can I install games on the cloud?
Asphalt 8. I got Asphalt 8. I got that flying game I like. What is it? Air Supremacy, Sky Gamblers. And what's that other game? Oh, the jet ski one, Riptide, GP2. I've still got like 3 gigs left on my HTC One, which is not a lot. So you're welcome for proving your point. Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you for that long explanation to prove exactly what I was talking about.
Well, no, listen, I have the 16 gig HTC One, which I would not buy. I would get the 32. I think 16 is too light.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
But 32 is fine.
I have 23%
32
left
is still fine.
I have 23% left in my 32 gig Moto X, and I don't have my games installed.
What did I get? I don't remember which Moto X I got, the 16 and 32. But it doesn't matter. It's all that is not interesting to the people whose ears we're in. I'm right in your ear.
Oh, Christ.
I just want to hear more about those 13 megapixel selfies.
Man, that's going to be epic. I want to hear more about that too. But until
I feel like someone's done this before, though.
Yeah.
Oppo had one.
Yeah, the Oppo, the rotator. Oh, hey,
rotating 13.
No, but not even that. I think last summer. there was talk about all
somebody
these
did it?
5-megapixel front facers, and I thought that might have been enough. But not from a big
probably somebody. Yeah, it was probably somebody just looking to grab some attention with the. But speaking of the Oppo, we're finally getting one. BT Dubs,
Nice.
isn't that exciting?
Yeah. In fact, all of us will soon be able to get one because we finally have a. Well, that's not Oppo. It's OnePlus. I'm getting ahead of myself.
That's all right. Let's talk about OnePlus. While we're talking about
OnePlus isn't that far off from Oppo.
that's exactly
No, it's
right. No, it's the same letter of the alphabet. Let's go with it. What's the deal?
Yeah. All right. So the previous Oppo employees who founded OnePlus are finally coming out with this OnePlus One. We knew it'd be sometime in the second quarter of the year. It'd be arriving before summer, and now we have a launch date, which is April 23.
Wow, April's
We
going
are
to be a busy
less than a
month.
month away. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's when you're going to be able to buy the phone, but we hope we'll get some firm information on availability by then. Maybe sometime in May, you finally be able to purchase it. But this guy, super cheap, under $400, and we've been hearing more and more about its specs. And one of them just got upgraded. We were told initially that it would run a Snapdragon 800 because Oppo, man, this is not going to be easy.
OnePlus.
They wanted a chip that was widely available, so they wouldn't be sitting around, waiting to have. They didn't want to end up like Samsung or Sony, where one component's holding behind the entire phone.
Sure.
The idea was the 800 be available in greater quantities than a newer chip like the 801, but nope, we're going to get the 801 after all. So I guess
Nice.
Qualcomm dumped a truckload of them at the OnePlus factory.
So
Wow, and aluminum construction as well. Swappable
not-
backplates. Is that not confirmed?
The backplates are, and those are really cool because they're real materials, like actual denim for the backplate.
For real? Someone is finally realizing the Gene Phone dream. Wow, I would get that. We wanted the Moto X in denim. That never happened. I want a color on it in ballpoint pen, like I did on my pants in junior high.
Have like a chalkboard background.
Oh, that would be sweet. It's like the poor man's Yoda phone.
So, who is going to get me one of these for my birthday? Because that's 3 days before my birthday.
Was that right? Well, I don't know. What are you going to get me for my birthday in exactly 2 days?
Star Trek pillows. They're on sale on ThinkGeek. You're welcome.
All right. Yeah. Well, then, yeah, I'll get you a OnePlus.
I mean, that seems fair.
All right. Great. I love their marketing material up top. Is this the best? Can we improve it? Are you sure? That's pretty cool. I think that it's a pretty compelling little teaser. How are they announcing this, Stephen? Are they doing a live streamed event? Where are they announcing it even?
I don't remember.
I don't know. Who knows?
Was that revealed?
You said you make reference to an April 23rd event.
We don't have the details.
Okay.
Not that I know.
All right. Well, they're just talking about the launch day, and
Sandstone?
I don't think they've done that. Sandstone, really?
A sandstone.
That's not
background.
real sandstone.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah.
They announced 5, I think, and sandstone and silk are going to be not exactly the real thing. Silk.
Yeah. Okay, so
I want a phone that's made out of rock. Please.
well, stone phone.
Oh,
I need-
obsidian phone.
My elbows are a little rough. I'll just grind them down with my
I
phone.
need to see if this is owned. Is stonephone.com owned? Yeah, no, it's parked free, courtesy of some sponsor, some squatters
missed
on it.
that chance.
I want this Stonephone. Stonephone.com. What if I got stonephone.net? Would you guys visit my website if that was my website?
I wouldn't.
No.
You guys should come to my website at Stonephone. All right, go ahead, Steven. What else is going on? Take us home.
Yeah.
This is the best news. This is the best news out of all of this. Yes.
So, NVIDIA Shield apparently still exists. NVIDIA has not given up and burned the remaining stock, and they're still trying to get people to buy these things. And they think that a nice way to do that would be lowering the price some more. This thing, I think it was $350 before it launched. Then they lowered the price before launch to $300. And it's kind of been hanging around in the same area ever since. But for beginning soon, going through the end of April, you'll be able to pick up an NVIDIA Shield for just $200.
Holy crap.
And I will probably buy one.
I'm
And
tempted to, but you think that they're going to have a new one. Might be a move to just get rid of their old stock. So
maybe,
But that thing is so monstrous.
it's huge.
Well, not even just that. The Tegra 5. Isn't that what's in it?
I know it's a 4.
Is 4? Is it Tegra 4?
Yeah.
In any case,
Yeah.
they're also
Either way, it's a monster.
and the other part of this news is that Valve is working on an Android port of Portal.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about
crazy.
being the best part.
Yeah.
Portal.
I mean, it's
Portal.
how many years late is this, though? This is the original Portal. This is not Portal 2.
Same time though, like if this title had been available on mobile earlier, I would have played it much earlier. I just played it for the first time like 3 months ago.
Jesus Christ, Michael!
I know. Well, what do you want from me? I'm behind on things.
To be up on things, times.
I can't. I'm not even due to start talking about the president's re-election until next month.
Have you heard about Grand Theft Auto 3? It's got this whole new sandbox thing. It's just a revelation.
Is that? Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to exploring San Andreas, and also I'm looking forward to getting into Breaking Bad in the year 2016. That's when
the
I'm
Ballad of Gay Tony. Is that what you're playing next?
You know what the most current thing I'm doing right now is? I'm watching Game of Thrones. That's the most current thing I'm up to.
I started Vikings last night, and I'm playing Skyrim again.
That's
wow.
Like a boss.
That's an interesting assertion. That's not at all related to what I was saying. Nice.
It's very.
I'm not buying you an NVIDIA
theme.
Shield now.
Do that.
I'm not.
I mean, it's good news, but it's not a coup. What if this was like Half-Life 3 for the NVIDIA Shield?
Yeah, but
That
I don't
would
think
have been
NVIDIA
something.
like. Does NVIDIA have the? They have this product that's like. Yeah, exactly. They have this failed product. No, I'm sorry.
is.
I'm not laughing at the Shield. I looked at the headline again and I saw your byline photo, Steve. So Steven Listeners has changed his byline photo to what is this from like high school or what?
No, it's from like a week ago.
You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me.
Where were you at like a disco hall?
No, I photo shooped.
Oh, you photoshopped. It's like it's the awesome laser background from high school photos. Like from 1988 high school photos. It is amazingly cool.
I've been playing a lot of Far Cry 3 Blood Diamond, so I'm very in like a cheesy 80s kind of mood.
I am so jealous of your byline photo. Please make me one. Okay, let's move in as we switch categories and try and slog through the rest of the news, folks. Let's jump into iOS.
Yeah, big iOS news today. We've got Microsoft Office for the iPad. It's been a long time coming.
It has. Now, can you tell me why everyone cares? I don't want the answer that
Because Office used to be big in the 90s and people can't seem to get that out of their head.
That seems now that's what's been hitting me in the face, and I'm trying not to be one of these snobs who's like, "Hey, I just use Google for everything," and I understand there's an entire segment of the human population that doesn't or can't use Google business solutions, and that's fine, but. Is that segment big enough to justify the massive amount of press this got today? Because I couldn't look at I put Twitter away. I was like, guys, I could not give less of a crap. Now, there
was a
how
point
it affects
in
the
the
industry,
past.
I understand, but it
used to be where if you wanted a really good word processing, I mean, I'm just thinking of Word, not even Excel and all the rest, but you wanted really good programs to do these, Office was one of your best options. But in the 15, 20 years since, everyone has come out with things that do comparable functions, either with free apps from any number of third parties. The companies making the smartphones, Apple and Google, have their own, largely cloud-based document solutions. Microsoft just too late? Do we really need this?
Even Samsung did it with the quite impressive, I think, the Handcom Office suite for the otherwise unremarkable Tab 10.1. I thought that was, there's a great software package on there. What do you need Office for?
I don't know. I've been, like I was saying earlier, I was working from the iPad today. Maybe I didn't say that earlier, but I'm working on a piece for tomorrow. Can you work entirely from a mobile device or a tablet? And I was doing spreadsheets with numbers earlier, and it actually wasn't half bad. Now, Google Drive on the iPad is pretty awful. Actually, Google Drive on mobile is not that great.
It's not great, no.
But Numbers, I haven't really used Pages, but Numbers is actually quite good for a mobile version of a spreadsheet.
So I can only assume that many people who work in corporate environments where Microsoft Office is the accepted standard, is the software package they use, like they've wanted to use this on their iPads and now they can. Is that the
that
thing?
was a big part of the announcement was the enterprise nature of this, and Microsoft trying to make it really easy for companies to use Office when employees are using a lot of disparate devices. They have their own iPads, or they have company issued smartphones. They have company issued computers. The idea is tying into all this cloud stuff. Office 365 allows the same documents to be accessed no matter where the employees are and what machines they're on.
Okay.
Frankly, I just want a Hotmail client for my iPad.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. What else came from this announcement, this Microsoft announcement today? This was Satya Nadella's first event, right?
Yeah, this is his first time under the spotlight as new CEO. The other news that came out of it, also about Office, is for the existing smartphone versions of the app. So we already had Office for the iPhone, came out last summer, I believe. But that was crazy limited. And there was an Android one as well, crazy limited. It was limited if you didn't have your Office 365 subscription, you couldn't do squat. Okay. With the new iPad version, at least you can view documents, you can run PowerPoint presentations without having to pay. If you want to edit stuff, then you have to get a subscription. But with the smartphone version, starting today, the whole shebang is available, free to use without Office 365. You can open, you can edit, you can save, you can do everything you used to need a subscription to do, just with like a regular free Microsoft account.
Huh. All right.
Only for home use, though. If you're using this for work, you're supposed to pay up, but that's pretty big.
It is. I suppose it is. I'm kind of jumping ahead. I'm cheating a little bit by looking at the Windows Phone section. It looks like there's some much juicier news down there for a mobile-focused site like ours. Can we jump ahead to that?
I don't see any reason why not.
Outstanding. Well, let's talk about Windows Phone.
Let's see. We have a lot going on here, actually. Well, we spent so much time talking about the HTC One. There is a rumor, a very familiar rumor, that we might get a Windows Phone version of the new HTC One. I mean, they were talking about something like this last year with the first one. Nothing came of that. Is this one something going to be a little more fruitful? I don't know. There have been claims that there are problems with the ultra-pixel camera that would stop it from working with the Windows Phone platform. I'm not sure exactly what the technical issue is there, but HTC's talked about it a little bit. But supposedly that this device would be very, very much like the new one we see for Android. It would be a metal device. It would still have these dual rear cameras. So it might be a little different, but it would be recognizable as a one.
This is interesting to me. It's always interesting to see the EvLeaks watermark on a leaked image because it automatically adds a degree of believability.
That's from me. I made that.
Oh,
I needed a picture of Windows Phone 8.1 with its virtual buttons, so I pulled that from the 630 render he leaked a while back.
Oh God! Well, that's horribly deceptive.
Sorry.
Well, all right. Commenters, don't. Oh, there's already so many comments. Okay, never mind.
Well, we don't have any official pictures of 8.1 with the virtual
with the virtual. Right? Yeah, I know.
What's it going to do? Great.
I understand.
Yeah, right. We're back.
Oh, hey, sorry. Taylor's back. So, okay, hopefully we see that. But now I think we have some slightly more concrete rumors out of Nokia, yes?
A bunch of Nokia stuff happening. Big event coming up. This one was rumored. Oh, well, first we were talking about a Nokia event maybe in the latter half of April. Then there are rumors about it being much, much earlier, up around when Microsoft's doing its Build conference. And sure enough, Nokia has confirmed it has an April 2 announcement with, quote-unquote, more Lumia. So we could be finally getting some of the hardware that we haven't seen yet. Devices like 630, 635, the 930, maybe even that 530. And no, there's a new one. We heard about this device, Monarch. We know nothing about this guy, but...
Yeah, and then there's the 1850 as well, right? That's rumored to be in the pipeline.
Oh, yeah, that's in the feed. I didn't get to that yet.
My goodness, there's a lot of... So I cannot believe they had this much stuff in the pipeline. And that, furthermore, that they're continuing to hold events where they're announcing new hardware as this acquisition truly gets into its 11th hour here, right?
Yeah, and the fact that this is happening on April 2nd, which is the very day the Build conference gets underway, and this is a late in the day announcement. This is in the evening. If we could get our Windows 8.1 news sometime in the afternoon, then Nokia could introduce the first native 8.1 smartphones a couple hours later.
I want to go to that thing we got a build invite, but we couldn't make build because of a conflict, and it would be wonderful to see this stuff. Now, we're going to get some hands-on time with some Windows Phone 8.1 hardware soon, as I recall from my schedule. So don't worry, we'll eventually get to look at this stuff. But this is, man, there's so much to keep in our heads here. There's so much going on, especially in the top of April here. So this is going to be really interesting to see. Is there a particular device that's a favorite among you gentlemen that you were really looking forward to seeing come out of this, like the 930 perhaps?
I mean, yeah, the 930 is probably going to be the most impressive out of them, but we haven't heard that much about it yet.
No, we haven't. I've been playing with the 925 again today, and it's just reaffirmed for me how wonderful some of Nokia's hardware is, and
yeah,
how
presumably
nice
it's going to be
right,
it's going to be very high end, but beyond that, we don't know.
Wow. Okay.
I kind of miss the icon, so that's all I've got to add to that.
I kind of miss the icon.
I know, right? Is the Monarch maybe T-Mobile's icon?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. What do we know about the Monarch? The T-Mobile Nokia Monarch hinted.
We know the name Monarch.
That's about it.
And the T-Mobile bit.
Hilariously, all the links on my rundown have stopped working.
It did the same thing to me. I just refreshed.
Yeah, that's what I'm up to now. Nokia Lumia Monarch. So we basically know nothing about it, Stephen?
And no, just that T-Mobile would carry it.
Okay, cool. What else is hot in this section?
Blah, blah, blah. Oh, so we heard a little bit about 8.1 itself. Some new pics surfaced along with descriptions of changes that could be coming to the Windows Phone store, and they largely sound like good stuff. There's a lot of reorganization, new categories, new ways to get around the app. Also, like better screens that will show you all your apps at once, show you stuff that's downloading currently, and some new features, including one that I imagine a lot of Windows Phone users have been waiting for, the ability to have apps automatically update without any interaction from you.
Oh, man, absolutely. That was one of the nicer conveniences of Android when it came to that platform. And just to have them update in the background is so nice. And, you know, if you want to have if you have a permission concern, well, every time that it changes permissions, it asks you. It's lovely. Yeah.
Oh, hopefully that is coming. And as far as progress towards the release goes, we've heard that the Windows Phone 8.1 core build has been completed. We might be getting RTM soon, where it heads out to manufacturers so they can start preparing their own updates. But it's, you know, this is what we would expect to see with build less than 1 week away. This is a good sign of progress, I guess.
I just want to note that Dan Rubino is a troll on a major scale, because I just checked Twitter just randomly yesterday, and he said congrats at Windows Phone team ! I'm like, whoa, what happened? And I Google searched, I looked everywhere and couldn't find a single thing, and I'm just like, what is this guy talking about? I looked around for probably 15 minutes, and then he published the RTM article that you're sourcing there. Yeah. He's such a troll.
I don't know. I think I missed the crucial part of that. But I okay.
He just said, like, he plugged the Windows Phone team just way before he ever published the editorial, and everybody was going nuts. So he was
stirring the
yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Right.
Jerk. He forced me to search the internet for 15 minutes trying to figure out what he was talking about.
Womp womp.
I'm so freaking tired. Go ahead, Stephen.
Before I get away from Nokia altogether, that 630 that might be among those April 2 announcements has finally been pictured. And this guy, we've literally been hearing about it for months. The name's been around since December. It's been in pictures since not long after that. Renders, mind you. Finally saw it with the actual phone. It's so disappointing because we can see so very, very little of it because the camera's like 3 inches away from the screen and everything's been cropped out.
Yeah, it's a requirement the world over that if you're going to leak some hot new hardware, you have to take a terrible photo of it. Yeah.
But what we see on screen does seem to support the idea this could be the 630. So,
what we see on screen is that Windows Phone 8.1 tile bleeding photo thing.
Yeah, and also the dual SIM mention, which I think this is the only phone we've heard so far in the running for 8.1 that could have dual SIM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Some good stuff there.
Is Microsoft lying about the Surface 2?
Not really. Well, kind of.
What is that?
So, Surface 2, the Surface Pro 2, not the no longer called RT version. But back in January, we heard that the tablet was getting an upgrade. It's still running an Intel Core i5, but rather than I believe the U4200 version of the chip, Microsoft is going to start popping in this 4300. It's a little bit faster, but the idea is that if there is new hardware available, you want to have it. You don't want to buy the old one. So people who have been shopping for the Pro 2 and who knew to look for this upgraded version have been asking Microsoft, making sure I'm going to get the one with the slightly faster chip, and yet the company keeps sending them the old version. It's not a huge scandal because Microsoft hasn't, at least as far as I've seen, made a big formal stink about this upgrade. Like, it's not listed in the specs, oh, you're going to get this new chip, and then you don't. But people who know about it and you take the time to ask, you assume they're going to be forthright about what's happening. Either say, yeah, you're going to get the new chip, and you do, or say, no, I mean, it's going to come later, but we can't guarantee it just yet, and you take your chances. But they're saying one thing and people are getting another, so
Adam Lane was using the Surface 2 to help me cover the HTC One M8 launch event, and if you watched the Hangout, you'll remember that we had some trouble there because Adam couldn't get on the thing for like 5 minutes while he waited for Windows 8 to load the plugins necessary for Google Hangouts, and I was like, man. I just kind of looked at the Surface 2 hardware. I asked him, I was like, is that the Surface 2? He's like, yeah, and I was momentarily excited by it. And then 10 minutes later, when he still wasn't on the Hangout because the damn Surface 2 wouldn't install the drivers it needed, I was like, get it out of my face.
It's funny. That happened last week, I guess, when Motorola was doing its Moto 360 Hangout the day after the Android Wear announcement happened. Oh,
my God, yes.
I tried to get on and cover that, and this is just on a Windows PC, not even a tablet, but I guess could not get the Google Talk plugins to load to view the Hangout. Was not behaving. Boo hiss.
Boo hiss,
yeah,
indeed.
No thanks.
We talked about that last week, right? Did we talk about Android Wear?
Yes, we did.
My
we did.
God. I can't remember. Like, it's so I wanted to talk about this now that we're sort of done with the news. Like, when a new device lands in our offices, folks, and it's a big deal like this, it kind of supersedes a lot of other stuff in the office of the person whose office it belongs to that the device landed in.
We were in office a few more times.
Words are hard. Words are hard.
Words are hard. So, yeah, can you? I'm this way now. Can you imagine I'm going to be later on tonight on the other podcast?
No, but it's going to be very
terrible.
Great and funny.
So the point is that this device has been all I've been thinking about for days, and I apologize that this episode has been a little disjointed. I'm glad our guests were of sound mind and clear thought, especially Nick's always great, but Daniel, man, it was great having him on. He had some very articulate. He should be on all the time to counteract the crap we bring to the table.
I think the camera's real good, man.
If they'd only put more Ultra Pickles inside, we wouldn't have to bolt on so many afterwards like a truck.
And you just made me hungry.
Oh, am I hungry?
Can I take this time to apologize as well? Because
sure.
I kind of made a big mistake in the video I published yesterday.
Oh.
You may have missed that. Yeah, so I did
after the buzz on the G2.
on the G2. Yeah.
G2, the LG G2.
Yeah, I made a mistake.
Apparently, the phone isn't a big joke. It's actually a serious product that LG intends to sell. Who knew?
So, I admittedly have not used the G2 all that much, and I spent the last 5-6 days with it, and I got very familiar with it. But I've just been enveloped by it and haven't paid attention to much else. And I was making the After the Buzz video yesterday. I was fact checking my script, and somehow some things slipped through, like how I wrote down it runs Android 4.4.2 Jelly Bean.
Yeah,
you're half right.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just a stumble.
That's fine, right? I made an honest mistake, called it Jelly Bean, not Kit Kat. But then I said that 4.4.2 is not the most recent version of Android, that it was a minor point update behind 4.4.3 Jelly Bean.
Holy crap.
4.4.3 is not out.
But we have seen evidence of new versions in testing, so you're
it's
not
in testing.
Wow.
Well, the fact checking I did check my facts. I just didn't check them thoroughly enough. I Googled Android 4.4.3.
Yeah.
And BGR, I hate you. The most buzzwordy headline ever was the first thing that came up, and it says Android 4.4.3. If you search this, it says Android 4.4.3 KitKat update release date.
We don't have one.
We don't. So I saw that, and there are like 4 or 5 headlines like that, and I'm like, oh, it is out. Sweet. So I just went ahead with my script.
Oh man. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sorry. I cut some corners. My bad.
Boy, genius, my foot.
The Android 4.4.3 Jelly Bean is not out yet, and it never will be.
Might. No, not Jelly Bean.
So yeah, I was so proud of that video. I'm like, this is one of my best. This is actually not half bad. And about 3 minutes after I published it, somebody's like on Twitter, they're like, it's KitKat.
Back unpadded.
And I knew exactly what they were talking about. That's all they said. So,
and that is exactly why video is so difficult to do, and that's why fact checking is so crucial, because you cannot fix it. The only way to fix that is to take it down, re-upload it, and then you lose the view counts. The search index gets all messed up, and everything is just horrible. That's the one real huge downside of video.
Edit videos after you upload them to YouTube?
You can edit them. You can like apply enhancements. You can trim them, but you can't say replace the VO track. You know,
that's lame.
Yeah,
well,
see,
I mean, hey,
I think it's Vimeo. Vimeo allows you to upload new versions of a video.
Vimeo is better than YouTube in pretty much every respect, except for the crucial bit of it having.
Except for not being YouTube.
A 100th of the audience, if
and it being paid.
Yeah.
You have to pay if you want a 1080p video.
Yeah.
If you want to upload a 1080p.
Can't even do that resolution.
And in other news, I looked up my favorite restaurant today using Google Now on the HTC One.
How was Taco Bell?
Nice work. Well, it's fine, but my other favorite restaurant is Alia Ristorante in Winthrop. So I was like, and I swear to guys, I'm not this tired. Like, this actually did happen. I didn't make it up out of whole cloth. I like, okay, Google Now, or whatever you have to say. Okay, Google, tell me, find Alia Ristorante for me. And she comes back, not with a standard American accent that she usually does, but she goes like, okay, Michael, here is Alia Ristorante. I'm like,
is that supposed to be Italian?
Right. It was like the computerized, butchered version of the American Italian accent.
I didn't even know it had Italian voices.
Kidding me? You have to try it. I refuse to believe it's an accident, but it was wonderful. And then I tweeted about it, and it was great. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
No problem. You're welcome.
Hey, Google Now, is this a spicy meatball? That's a spicy meatball.
Boppity boopy. Yeah. So anyway, that's the ticket. I think we have a lot more M8 coverage to do before the week is out. And
you're still talking about that?
Yeah. There's so much to do.
My city is in turmoil. Just random aside.
Is that true?
My mayor was arrested by the FBI yesterday.
I heard about that.
That's me. That's
Why?
Charlotte.
What happened?
Corruption. He's been under investigation by the FBI for years.
Did you see American Hustle? It's that.
Wow.
Yeah. He was taking bribes from undercover FBI agents.
Wow.
Yeah, he and a California senator were arrested by the FBI yesterday.
This is why I always ask, are you an undercover FBI agent before accepting a $20,000 bribe?
Right,
you know?
right.
Common sense.
You have to ask that.
So, yeah, the California senator who was arrested, he was arrested on arms trades or arms dealings. He was the one who was behind banning gun violence in video games. I can't make this up.
Wait. When was gun violence in video games banned? Because have you played video games lately?
No, it wasn't banned. He was behind the movement, like the bill trying to pass that. He was the lead person behind that, and he got arrested by the FBI yesterday for arms trafficking.
Damn.
All those games encouraging you to be an arms dealer is the problem.
Yeah. So, sad news. I was trying to get, for the podcast in the coming months, I was trying to get Jen Taylor on, the voice of Cortana, to talk to her. I know, wouldn't that be great? She was very nice on Twitter. She referred me to her agency, which of course she had to do because all of that Microsoft stuff is under NDA, and she can't talk about any of it. And
if we can't get that, if we want to keep in the hologram voice thing, my friend's grad school roommate's sister was a singing voice of Jem, and I might be able to hook that up.
The singing voice of Jem
from Jem and the Holograms.
I do not.
She's truly, truly, truly outrageous.
I wish I got this reference so that I could be with you on this.
Were you not a girl in 1987?
Well, I was, but I've since changed and had the memory wiped from those days.
Wow.
Darn. Well, you know what? Bring her on. It'll be fine. We are eventually going to have Ali Spagnola on, which is going to be a lot of fun because I'm really looking forward to talking. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. And that'll be wonderful. But I think, speaking of that, I really think Steven needs to get back to the news, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and I have to get back to doing this video that's never going to be done because I have to edit the podcast first and a bunch of stuff. And people keep on throwing crap into the chat, and it's
I have to publish an entire article for Pocketnow using nothing but an iPad.
You're such a martyr.
It's going to be all sevens.
Yeah. Listen, your keyboard is backlit. It's awesome. What say we get out of here, guys? Listener mail would be great, but we're going to save it for next week because, frankly, guys, we're just wiped.
No. We got rid of all the listener mail, didn't we? We got an inbox zero.
Inbox zero don't last forever, Jack.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. So let's start the output. Speaking of Ali Spagnola, our transition music is called Radiation. It is one of the ringtones on your Nexus 4 Galaxy Nexus. It is also a full-length song by Ali Spagnola. She has a ton of fans and throws some pretty hip concerts, as I understand it. I've yet to attend one of her power hours, but I really want to do that. Ali has a bunch of very fun videos at her new YouTube channel, youtube.com/AliSpags, and at her website, alispagnola.com, both of them linked in the description below. I think, gentlemen, it's about time to say goodbye to all of you and to me, for you to say goodbye to me. And so
words are hard.
Because that's going to do it for this episode of the Weekly. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to our guests for joining us before. And thank you all for all your listener mail every week and for listening. Be sure to find us on Twitter. Stephen Shank is at Stephen Shank, STEPHEN.
And I tweeted today.
SCHENCK. You tweeted today. Go find that tweet. Taylor is at CasperTech, CSPRTK. I am, as always, at Captain Two Phones, Captain the number 2 phones. You can follow Pocketnow officially on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Google+. And if you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a review. If you haven't left it on Stitcher already, please leave us a review there. Leave us a review on iTunes. Wherever reviews are left, please leave one because it helps us stay highly ranked in spite of rambling, nonsensical BS episodes like this one. As always, our heartfelt thanks for listening. And we'll be back with more mobile tech talk next week.
Take it easy.
Yeah, see, Steven had a nice one, and then Taylor just barked.
Just guttural.
Axel Martin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. You knew a guy who lived next door to Two Takes Frakes?
Yes.
I don't know what that is.
Commander Riker, bro. The sweetest ladies man this side of the Alpha Quadrant.
I still don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so go ahead,
yes,
Taylor.
Yes and no.
Go ahead.
Everybody's so polite. Go ahead, Daniel.
I'll go.
All right, Nick, you go.
Fine, I'll go.
Yeah, let's take some great shots. And you could be a total creeper with it. You can be 400 feet away from somebody and be like, zoop. Oh, hey, you have a pimple on your ear, friend.
Ew.
Anyway, yeah, I know. Let's continue.
A little bit of new.
Awkward.